Coming up at 11, 2 children are dead after being left in a hot car.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News Weekend Edition.
Good evening and thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Macy Marie. 2 young lives cut short. 1-year-old twins left in a hot car while their father went to work. Melissa Rainey reports.
A tragic scene in the Bronx Friday night. Police tape blocked the streets as New York authorities investigated the death of twin babies in a hot car.
It's terrible. And then 2 kids, it's a big tragedy.
Identified by New York police as Marissa and Phoenix Rodriguez, both 1-year-old. The father, Juan Rodriguez, has been charged with 2 counts of manslaughter and 2 counts of criminal negligent homicide.
I can't understand how he left them.
Police said the twins were left inside the car for 8 hours. Outside temperatures climbed into the mid-80s through the day, while their father worked his shift at the nearby VA hospital. The twins were found unresponsive in the back of his car after he left work. Witnesses say that's when they saw Rodriguez pull over and yell for help.
I was coming out my building when he was going around the car, yelling and screaming. Bits and pieces I could hear was like, it's not my fault, it was an accident.
Authorities quickly arrived on scene, covering the vehicle and assessing the situation.
When he looked in the back seat, all you could see is the officer do this and then start shaking his head.
I'm Melissa Rainey reporting.
A couple was hiking on a dormant volcano on the Caribbean island of St. Kitts when the husband fell, plunging more than 50 feet. The tropical island of St. Kitts seemed like the perfect choice for the perfect honeymoon to Clay and Akini Shateen. The Indianapolis couple were hiking a dormant volcano when Clay found a rope leading down into the crater. As he headed in, his wife stayed up top. Now his wife had to push, pull, and coax her husband out of the volcano and down the mountain. After nearly 4 hours, she was able to get cell service and call for help.
It was just by God's grace that we were able to make it all the way down, or able to make it to safety, that I was able to get an ambulance there.
Chastain sustained a serious head injury, and the couple's family raised nearly $36,000 to transport Clay back to a hospital in the States. Doctors say he's expected to be okay. Police are intensifying their manhunt for 2 teen murder suspects in Canada. They're accused of killing 3 people, including an American woman and her Australian boyfriend. Janet Shamilian reports on the new efforts underway to find them.
Heavily armed Canadian police are now canvassing homes door to door, as well as checking trains, using dogs and drones in the search for these 2 teens, believed to have gone on a killing spree and on the run for 2 weeks. The checkpoints are 2,000 miles from where the duo is believed to have killed 3 people, including China Deese from North Carolina and her Australian boyfriend Lucas Fowler, touring the British Columbia wilderness when they were found shot to death next to their broken-down van. Police say a Canadian professor is the 3rd victim. After finding the teens' burned-out SUV and 2 confirmed sightings, police initially believed the duo was on foot, but now say they could be long gone.
It is possible that someone may not have been aware of who they were providing assistance to.
The manhunt is the daily headline in Canada and has the small town of Gillam in northern Manitoba on edge.
A lot of community members that haven't gotten sleep.
Here at home, friends of China Deese will say goodbye today at a memorial in Charlotte.
The Canadian Army has arrived in the region to assist with this search. The question is whether these teenagers had help and are already out of the region. Janet Shamlian, CBS News, Los Angeles.
The focus now, were the teens able to get some help from someone, and are they already out of the area? The funeral for University of Mississippi student Alexandria Allie Costiel was held in St. Louis this morning. On Tuesdays, authorities in Mississippi arrested a suspect in her death. Brandon Thiesfield, who's 22 and from Texas, was taken into custody Monday afternoon. Deputies discovered Costiel's body Saturday morning, and the department says that it was apparent that foul play was involved. Thousands were without power in the D.C. metro this afternoon. At least 40,000 people were in the dark earlier today. The outages were caused by problems with electrical equipment. Emergency crews responded to people stuck in elevators and traffic signals being out. An Oklahoma girl who was injured when a deadly EF3 tornado touched down near her home in May was released from the hospital Friday. 2 people were killed by the storm and little Kermisa Soto was seriously injured. But now her family is happy to have her up and about again. And she spent 2 months in the hospital. She was suffering from a broken leg, a broken arm, and a serious brain injury.
Rough. Like I said, I really haven't processed a lot of things yet, so I'm just kind of taking things, one thing at a time.
Her mom had some recovering to do too. She suffered a broken neck when the tornado hit. The family is staying with relatives for now while they sort out permanent living arrangements.
We saw a nice day of weather here in eastern Kentucky, and looks like tomorrow we're going to see more of the same for most of us. Let's take a look at what's going on right now, courtesy of our Whitesburg weather cam, and you can see a dry evening ongoing across most of the mountains. Pinpoint Doppler, nice and dry. Those little areas of green you do see, not actually precipitation, just a little bit of ground clutter showing up on the radar. Just happens this time of year when you sometimes get a little bit of warmer air trapped under that cooler air at the surface. Here's a look at those temperatures right now. 75 at Hazard, 71 London, 66 Harlan, 68 into Wise. And the dew points have been on the rise this evening. You might have noticed it's become a little bit more muggy out there, with those dew points climbing into the upper 60s now for most of us, although still a little bit drier over towards the Virginia border. But that just means more humid air is moving in. That means the chance of a little bit of patchy dense fog. Remember, you can always get the latest forecast on the WYMT weather app, and it's showing clear skies tonight with temperatures falling down to around 64 degrees for your overnight low, and then we are quickly back into the 80s. In fact, we top out in the mid to upper 80s tomorrow. More typical summer weather for a couple of days before a cold front rolls in, and that'll bring some changes to the region. We'll have more on that here in a few minutes, Macy.
All right, thank you, Shane. Kentucky students will see a new sign hanging in the hallways when they go back to school this year. The General Assembly passed a new law requiring every school building to display "In God We Trust." Kentucky is not the only state implementing this new policy. Schools in South Dakota, Utah, and other states have similar laws. A 75-year-old locomotive rolling through parts of central Kentucky. It's what brought a crowd to Midway earlier today and then to Lexington just hours ago. Krista Frost was there as it rolled in, bringing memories and hopes for a new future with it.
It's living history. Absolutely living history.
It's a cool sight for this crowd, but it's so much more for Ohioan Liz Stevens.
My husband had always had a love of trains since he was a boy.
His name is Tom. Together, they began working with the Historical Society restoring trains out of Fort Wayne, Indiana, about 100 miles from their small town outside of Dayton.
In the late 80s, early 90s, we went to Birmingham, Alabama. They were not running it anymore. It was broken. So Tom and a few other of the Fort Wayne men went to Birmingham, Alabama, and we got this 2716, took it to Fort Wayne, and they proceeded to restore it.
Of course, they had some help.
Whatever he did, I did. If he worked with grease, I worked with grease.
Piece by piece, they helped preserve this 2716, sending it to a museum in New Haven, where Chris Campbell went with an idea.
What do you think about us doing an inspection? And if we do an inspection on it and like it and think it's mechanically viable to restore, would you let us lease it for the long term and operate it?
An idea that quickly took off, and who better to consult with than the man storing some of these parts at home.
The guys came to the house and they went down to the barn, and it's like, oh yeah, got a piece of this here and a piece of that there.
This is video from a few years back, and there's Tom telling these guys stories from when he worked on this engine.
I just like to hear it run again, see it run again. I hope I live long enough.
He had cancer, and he just couldn't fight it anymore.
But that's why Liz brought his picture, so he can see this engine's future.
Oh, he would have loved this. He's looking down now, very happy to see that it's going to be rebuilt.
In Midway, Krista Frost, WKYT.
The locomotive is making stops through central Kentucky on its way to eastern Kentucky. It will be parked in a shop in Estill County, where it will be restored with the help of technical students and then used to promote tourism here in the mountains. The 14th annual Burn Run Festival wrapped up minutes ago at Archer Park in Prestonsburg. The event is hosted by Brothers Keepers Motorcycle Club. All the proceeds go to fund Camp Ya Til Abba, and that camp is backwards ability. The camp is for children who are burn victims with Shriners Children's Hospital. Brian Moore says this camp helps these kids have a normal summer.
They get to attend camp together, and nobody judges them because they may have scars or something. They just get a chance to be kids.
Between the car show, vendors, and inflatables, organizers say there was a little something for everyone. Last year's Burn Run Festival raised nearly $15,000. Organizers say they hope to surpass that number this year. A fresh haircut is on a lot of back-to-school checklists, but some families are not able to pay for one. So the First United Methodist Church of Paintsville and a few local hairstylists teamed up to offer free haircuts to local kids who are about to head back to school.
We always see school supplies and such like that, and I was trying to think out of the box of something that would be cool for the kids that they don't really get to experience or may not have access to. So I come up with the free back-to-school haircuts, so all the kids will have a fresh cut and style when they return back to school.
This is the fourth time the church has held the event, and members say they hope to add more barbers and beauticians in the future. And still to come on Mountain News Weekend Edition.